God bless everybody today. It is February 8th of 2023. This is a update on Daniel 8 and 10 and how this is affecting the Middle East and what potentially could happen next. I was asked just recently what I thought might happen in the Middle East and how this could culminate based on my paradigm and timelines, and so as we get into this video, I'll try to go through some of those scenarios, and these are a lot of my opinions based on just looking at the situation and analysis of how this might go down on a number of different levels through a number of different groups. So let's look at all these different articles, and then we'll do a little summary at the end so that I can sort of explain what could possibly happen. And like I say, that's mainly my opinion at this point. So this earthquake that's hit Turkey and Syria is extremely devastating, and the death tolls are rising to 10,000 or more almost at this point. And so this is going to continue. All kinds of groups are sending material aid to this area to help. But that's going to also cause all kinds of issues, I think, as we move forward. And Erdogan, in his case, in Turkey, and now understand Syria and Turkey are handling this differently. Erdogan's got a massive amount of logistics on the ground and is trying to unbury and save as many lives as possible. And Syria doesn't necessarily have the same capacity, and so this is going to cause a lot of friction on the border and how this is being handled between these different areas and groups. Erdogan is indicating over 13 million people out of his 85 million people are being affected in 10 different provinces, and Erdogan has indicated that he has set up a 3-month state of emergency for this area because it's been so heavily devastated by this earthquake that's affected both Syria and Turkey. So I brought this article up because I wanted you to be able to see the Syrian Turkish line, also the Iraqi border. And you can see it down here also, how it's affecting Turkey, Syria, Lebanon, and all these different areas where both of the earthquakes did hit. And there was been many more after that. A lot of aftershocks, 6.0, I believe, and some other things going on here, and how it's radiating out from this area. Now, I believe, and this is my opinion, that this is by design, but this is by God, and everybody's going to question that. I get it. But we just had that thing on the 24th where Michael's being sent forward, and I believe that when you get in 2 almost 8.0 earthquakes, this is unprecedented, and there's something else going on here than just normal stuff happening. And so we have to look at these things, and what Bible prophecy is telling us right now is these areas are going to start to be affected tremendously by biblical prophecy. Now, that's my opinion, and I've been explaining to you why I believe that is the case, but I believe this now has shattered Erdogan's defenses in this area, and this is going to open up a vacuum as all these groups are starting to pile into this area to help mainly Turkey and parts of Syria down here. I mean, everybody's sending people there. Even the Taliban are trying to send stuff there. So when this happens and you start to see these groups come in, what my potential fear is, as a group of emergency workers are gathering around to help, uncover a building, get people out. All these emergency people are in the area. that there will be potential terrorist attack, a bombing of these civilians and other people trying to help, and that there's going to be a lot of degradation of this front line due to the earthquake, and how this is all having complications, not only through the earthquake itself, but just the geopolitical things that are happening. There have been reports that on this border we've still seen shelling through pro-Assad forces on earthquake areas only potentially 2 hours after the earthquakes happened. And so the question was brought up to me, and my first comment was that I don't think the earthquake will impact how biblical prophecy will play out, because Psalm 90:10 says it has to occur in the strong generation or prior to May 14th of 2028. But that this would then move forward, and I believe this will actually amplify or speed up the potential process, because now we have all this devastation in this area. Erdogan has this election cycle coming up in May 14th of 2023, and now we have a 3-month emergency. Now that says a lot. He's stating that he wants 3-month emergency to clean these areas up and out. And so this isn't an overnight process. It's going to take a lot of time, and a lot of people are going to come into this area, and I believe this is going to cause Erdogan all kinds of problems. And if you go to the Syrian live map that I use, you'll notice that activity is not slowing down on a lot of levels. Turkey's still flying warplanes over certain areas. Bombings are still occurring. You can see from a number of these articles that, like I said, even some of these jihadist groups are talking about sending aid to Turkey. A lot of these groups are run by Iran. So a lot of these areas and groups are going to be commingled into these areas. And I don't know how you determine who's a emergency worker and who's a terrorist that's got a bomb strapped on them over here, and that a potential person could walk into a crowd of potential hundreds, like in Pakistan just recently, where they had that massive explosion over there that just rocked and killed literally hundreds of people and maimed thousands of others. And so as you go down these stories that are happening in real time, you can see all these different areas are sending groups, different things are happening. Pro-Assad forces are not only bombing groups, but they're also trying to help them. It's such a mess over here. And I think this is going to bleed over and cause all kinds of problems as we move forward. And this situation basically escalates and ramps up, because now we have a massive hole over here, and this vacuum is going to fill, and it's going to fill with a lot of bad players, I believe. And there's another area I want you to always keep your eye on, because Azerbaijan does play a part of this. And so when you go into this, Israel TV is airing propaganda about Azerbaijan military relationships. We just had those winter exercises with like 19 or 20 different countries up there in Azerbaijan. And so Azerbaijan is ready to go against Iran, okay? And so Turkey controls Azerbaijan, and I keep talking about Turkey and how they're going to do this land invasion fairly soon. I don't believe that Erdogan is going to go away from his ideology and his building this footprint of this Ottoman Empire that he wants to do by the end of 23. I don't believe this earthquake is going to stop him. Just as Putin's not being stopped up north with Ukraine and NATO and all that going on, he's going to rebuild that footprint. He's on a mission. I believe Erdogan is in a mission, and he's speeding up this process. He's moved his election cycle up. This earthquake is going to cause him all kinds of issues on his southern border, and so he's going to step up how he's going to secure these areas, and potentially, if he can't get Assad to work with him and get these terrorist groups to stop attacking his area, there is going to be a point in time where he is going to invade Syria and he's going to take Assad out, and he doesn't care what Putin says. Okay, and even Israel is basically telling Putin that, you know, they have to walk a fine line here because they're asking them to send all this equipment up to Ukraine, but they have to try to figure out how to deal with Russia and Iran on the other side. So they're in a very precarious situation. And if you go to this other front, because we've got so many things going on over here, you can't leave any of these pieces out of the equation. Netanyahu basically is telling the Palestinian Authority that they can't rely on them for these things that are going on, how they're going to protect their areas, and that they're going to have to do this basically on their own. And so that's not going to make the Palestinian Authority happy. This government is about ready to collapse anyway, and so this is just going to apply pressure as he still is cleansing these areas, evicting these people, doing demolition and other things on these areas, and driving these Palestinians out and resettling them with Jewish people. This isn't going away, and I keep talking about Hamas hasn't retaliated. Not really. They've done these small attacks, but we have not seen a massive missile attack that I believe could potentially happen against Israel. Once Israel keeps cracking down and we see more and more Palestinian Hamas people killed, Hezbollah potentially are involved in this too. These different areas like Gaza, West Bank, Golan Heights, and different things are being affected. Something is going to break, and these groups are getting coordinated more than I believe they have in a long time, and so I believe that this is going to culminate in a massive missile strike against Israel that will then potentially ramp this up also. So there's a number of fronts that we have to be looking at, because any of these could break out at any time. And even in Israel, they're having massive protests against this far right-leaning government that Netanyahu set up, and how they're cracking down on all these groups, and how the population believe this is going to cause a lot of problems. And so they're out basically telling Netanyahu to stop this, but he's on a mission, and I don't believe that that's going to happen. And in this article, you can see that nothing stopped because of the earthquake. It's accelerating everything, and I believe this is planned by God, and potentially even Michael forced this earthquake to accelerate this through the prophecy. And that may sound crazy, but I believe that there's a chain of events happening here in Daniel 10 and actually Daniel 8 that actually work together if you look at them. So they foiled two different terror attacks. As they're foiling these attacks and they're going into these areas and they're cracking down on these areas, this is going to start to potentially cause a real problem for Hamas, Hezbollah, and these groups, and they're going to finally launch a fairly large, if not massive, attack against Israel. And then that would potentially bring Turkey into it even more, because Turkey's trying to protect the Temple Mount. And we still have to watch the Kurds, and that's what I said. We not only do we have this Hamas, Hezbollah, Palestinian Authority, Lebanese, Israeli, Iranian problem over here, we also have that problem between the Kurds, Turkey, Syria, Iraq, and Iran, and Russia there also. So you've got multiple different fronts that you have to be watching at the same time. Like I said, Netanyahu is on a mission here. He is going into these areas, and he's driving these Palestinians out, and they're taking a lot of these terrorist cells out, and so they're going to get blowback on this someday, and this is going to break down, and we are going to see potentially an attack here. And so just realize that all these different working parts are happening at this very moment, and that it just takes one thing to really make this break, and there's so much happening that I just don't believe it's going to take much to make something like that happen. And Israel and Turkey are now normalizing their relationship, and this is going to bond them a little more up front. But I believe this is going to be a real problem for Israel as this moves forward, and we start to see these potential terrorist attacks hit Turkey, that Turkey's going to drive into Syria and Iraq. As Turkey stated, he's got this land invasion still potentially going to happen. He's been talking about this forever. He's not given this up. Now, the earthquake may have slowed him down, but his troops are ready to go. Even Azerbaijan's ready to go. All these areas that Turkey controls are ready to go. And so Israel sending their defense forces into Turkey, that's normalizing. Look, if we get an attack by a Kurdish terrorist, and I'm not saying Kurds are terrorists, I'm just saying if we get like an attack in a Turkish area by a Kurd, and we have a Pakistani type event, this will change the game, because Erdogan will then ramp up his position to try to secure those borders, and he's going to invade. And so this has always been my fear would be, and my confirmation that maybe Daniel 8 and Daniel 10 are working in play right now, is that Turkey would invade and start to genocide those Kurds. And so that's why I said that potentially this, in my opinion, we could see this attack by a Kurdish terrorist in Turkey, as the United States is warning Turkey that there are potential threats in Turkey, that they're going to see another potential terrorist attack. And so even the United States is warning the Turkish government and Erdogan that this is a problem right now, and they see potential attacks on their country as this earthquake is happening, as this vacuum is being set up, and all these groups are starting to move into this area. This is going to be a real problem, and I believe this will break down, and we will see something happen fairly soon here. And I'm just trying to give you some more articles on why this isn't slowing down. Israel's not stopping. They're going to keep this expansion going on, and so you have to watch these multiple different fronts. You've got to watch Israel and Iran and Hamas and these different factions and proxies of Iran. You've got to watch Turkey and this potential invasion and how that's going to affect the Kurds, and how that will then affect Iran, Syria, and Iraq all at the same time, and how that could potentially break out, how multiple different fronts of things could be breaking out at the same time. Russia's still giving Iran nuclear components, and now Iran is, there's an article, and I'm not going to show you all these articles because it would take too long, that Iran is building a drone factory in Russia, and we have Israel not wanting to send armaments and stuff to Ukraine because they're in conflict with Iran and Russia over here, and so there's a lot of working parts. What will force this to break? I don't know exactly. I can only give you the scenarios that potentially could force this to break. But I believe that when you have two almost 8-point earthquakes, an unprecedented thing that hasn't happened in potentially 100 years, some people are saying decades, but you can go back a long time and look at this. In this area, nothing's been like this was happening in an area like this. And we just saw this prophecy indicate that on the 24th he was going to send Michael and then Turkey after that. And like I said, the only stamps I have are between the 24th of January and October 10th, based on the paradigm, that a lot's going to happen and that we would see a potential attack on Israel before October, because once Iran falls through Turkey, they would then drive to Egypt, and they have to go through Jordan, and they have to go through Israel to get to Egypt, and then they will be drawn back into Israel and attack Israel. This is going to really start to ramp up in the next 8-9 months. And so we have to really keep our eye on all these different components and things. And I mentioned this before, I played Risk for many, many years. So when I break these types of things down, I look at the areas, how they're going to strategically affect each other, what different groups are affecting certain areas, and how these vacuums are building into these areas, and how this is going to break down, and which groups could actually affect these areas and cause this prophecy to actually occur. Now, like I say, I believe that Bible prophecy is real. I believe that we are in that last moment of time. And I showed you this in the last video, that we're down to 4 years, 7 months, and whatever days that this is going to start to really break out and accelerate. Will that happen? I don't know. We're going to know fairly soon. This isn't going to slow down over here, and something will break and something will happen. My main indicator right now of what I'm looking at is an attack by Hamas or one of these factions by Iran on Israel that would cause a retaliation. The other thing that I'm looking at is potentially an attack on Turkey through a terrorist act that would be a bombing, or it's a suicide bombing or some other type of thing that would then force Turkey to shut his borders down and expand his 30-mile buffer zone and lock that down and expand down further, which would cause problem with Syria and Iraq. This land invasion potentially then would occur through Operation Claw Sword, and that would then force those Kurds down southeast between Baghdad and Shush, fulfilling the prophecy. And then once they would then align, the Kurds would align with Iran, we would see Turkey smash them as the prophecy indicates. Then once Iran falls, Turkey would form 10 nations as they head to Egypt and to Israel by the end of this year. And like I say, if you look at Joel 1 and 2, Israel will be affected by plagues, famine, and disease prior to the attack of Gog by the sword in Joel 2. And so I believe that we're going to see a lot starting to happen over here in the Middle East, and it's going to affect everybody. Israel is under major judgment at this moment, as well as all these other areas. And so let's see how this plays out. But these are the scenarios that I'm looking at right now. And I just want you to understand, you know, this is sort of how I believe that some of these things could play out, or all of them could happen over time. You know, we could have a number of things happen where Hamas attacks. We have a Kurdish bombing in Turkey. Turkey get invade and start to drive those Kurds down southeast, and if Erbil falls, that whole system would collapse, and that prophecy would accelerate to a destruction of the nation of Iran. So God bless everybody. Keep your eye on everything. Things are moving quickly, and we need to keep updated. Please put oil in your lamp. And if you're not telling people what's coming, and don't take my word for it, look at these things, match them up with prophecy, and determine for yourself where you are in time and how you should prepare, you and your family, for what is to come in the next 4 to 5 years. And so, God bless. Have a great night, and I will bring you another update fairly soon in the next few days.